He pointed out a series of calls that went against the Seahawks and tried not to blame the refs entirely, but said they played a huge part in the loss. Now, Carroll called into 710 Sports Radio in Seattle and just was like, I've got gripes. He talked about the fumbled snap for Aaron Rodgers when it looked like Darrell Taylor emerged from the pile by the Seahawks, and they said, no, that's Packers ball. He talked about the King interception where in the end zone, Russell Wilson was picked off on 3rd and 10, and it looked like King lost the ball, lost possession when he hit the ground. They called it the INT. On the Seahawks opening drive, the officials' initial spot gave the Seahawks a first down after a 3rd down scramble, but play was stopped because of an injury to Rashawn Gary. They then looked at it and ruled it a 4th and 1 instead. And so Carroll looked at all of these things, pointed out all of these things, and then said, they all affected us negatively. There's nothing wrong with Russell Wilson. His finger wasn't affecting him negatively. That's not why we lost. And I have to say that while Pete Carroll certainly has the right to feel frustrated about calls that went against him, and those 3 calls did, I think it's delusional to point at those 3 calls and say that's why we lost. Can you say, hey, we didn't get those calls? Sure. But to think that those 3 calls are why you lost 17-0, I think is delusional. And I've defended Pete Carroll. Yesterday, one of our listeners said, hey, is it time to really get on Pete? Is he too old? Has the game passed him by? So they went 12-4 last year. That's a tough sell for me that they were playing for the number 1 seed of the AFC, in the NFC rather, in the final week of the season. And 8 months later, 10 months later, 11 months later, suddenly the game has passed him by. Now he's 70. Last year at 69, they were 12-4. But I think that there's always this risk of a Pete Carroll coach team that loses itself because it's not buttoned up enough. Pete Carroll is awesome when he's got talent. Look at USC. When he had that thing rolling, awesome. It's easy to play when you're Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart and Lendale White and Dwayne Jarrett and go down the list of great players for him during that dynasty that were having fun, loving life, winning in routes, and Pete's great. When you got talent, Pete's great. Look at the Seahawks, back-to-back Super Bowls, Legion of Boom. Those guys, that defense, Bobby Wagner and Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman, they take care of their business. They're incredibly talented. They're perennial Pro Bowlers. We got this. You're playing for Pete, and life is good, man. Life is great. Russell Wilson starts coming on, and when things are good around Pete, things are great. When his talent has been frittered away, retirements, trades, drafting isn't as good, free agent signings haven't been great, Pete's not a hardcore, button-up, attention to details guy. And when your talent's not as good as the team across from you, that's when you get exposed. I think the thing about Pete has always been, if he's got more talent than you, he's going to beat you. But if he doesn't, it's going to be hard. Because he's not a great tactician. He's not a great scheme guy. He's never been a great game management guy. Well, guess what? Packers are a more talented team than the Seahawks. They are. Top to bottom, they're more talented. They've drafted better. They've developed better. They've signed better free agents. And Pete has never had that. So I bristle with the games passing Pete by because it's too easy to say that. I do think, though, that when a team is lacking elite talent for Carroll, they oftentimes do not have the ability, they never have the ability to beat a team that does. And this year's Seahawks team doesn't. They don't have elite talent. You know? They don't. And look, last year, so much of the 12 wins was Russell Wilson playing at an elite level. He played like an MVP for most of the season. And Metcalf and Lockett and the rest of those guys on offense, they threw the football downfield. They created big plays. They created big points and big quarters, and they were able to survive with a defense that wasn't quite that great. This year, when Russ has gone down with an injury, clearly they're a shell of themselves. A lot of teams are when they lose their starting quarterback. But on a game like Sunday where Russell Wilson's not playing like an all-pro, it's the little things that always seem to go against the Seahawks. And when Pete calls out the officials, it's like, yeah, but that can't be the focus on Sunday. And I'll tell you why. Because if you're a Seahawks fan, you know this. Sunday wasn't an anomaly. Like, oh, yeah, Sunday we got screwed by the officials. Sunday felt like too many other Sundays. So it's not always the officials. And look, maybe that's why Russell Wilson could get frustrated with Pete. And maybe that's why, since they went to those back-to-back Super Bowls, it seemed to be kind of a steady progression downwards. Carroll's great when he's got the talent. But if he doesn't, he's not going to outcoach you.